All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video. Captain Cody Davis here with you guys again for another one. Kind of a fun, special one, in my opinion, because it is Elite Series week here on Lake Okeechobee. Yes, the Elite Series guys are in town, and I think it's going to be an awesome event. That's what we're going to be talking about in today's video. Bear with me on the lighting. I think you guys can see me. Just redid the office. Definitely got to work in some new lighting. And while I was making some notes here to do this video, my light above my head burnt out. But instead of switching it, we're just going to roll with it. I'll kind of go over what I predict happening, what I foresee happening in this event, what you guys can look forward to watching on Bassmaster Live if you guys wish to tune in, which I believe you should. And yeah, we'll see. I'm just going to throw some predictions out there. Before we get into this, if I look beat and tired, I am. This is my first day off of the water in I don't know how many weeks. And today is actually my birthday. So I did not plan this. I actually had a trip scheduled yesterday, today, and tomorrow with the same group. And the weatherman basically on my apps and their apps as well said, don't go outside. It's going to be lightning, 25 inches of rain. Florida's going to be underwater and the wind's going to be bad. So we, just canceled today. And instead, what we have is probably like the fishiest conditions we've had in 2 months. It's just that humid, somewhat warm winter Florida air, very overcast, not blowing all that hard. These fish are definitely biting. So I believe today is the first official day of practice for the Elite Series guys. I'm sure they are smashing them. They're catching them, which could be a good thing or a bad thing. I shouldn't say they're smashing them. If they're smart, they're getting bit and shaking them off, but we'll get into that. Also, before we get into this tournament, huge shout out to Bill Owen, who took home the win on the St. Johns River. It was awesome to see him win. He doesn't know me. I don't know him. I've ran into him a couple of times and spoken to him briefly at the ICAST convention. He is on camera as he is in person, just a humble, down-to-earth, swim jig throwing dude. And it was really cool to see a guy who just likes fishing shallow, likes swimming a jig, doing some pitching around, take home the win. Not that there's anything against forward-facing or anything like that, but it was just really refreshing to see a guy throwing a swim jig and flipping some mats, take home the win. So huge shout-out to him. Congrats on a great event, and maybe he'll do a repeat here at Okeechobee. So let's talk about the event. Here's the deal. So just to kind of back up, I kind of coined the phrase that Lake Okeechobee is the best and worst lake in the country 2 days a week. And that pattern continues just to follow us into today. With that being said, I mean, the tournament weights have been fairly good as far as your winning weight, but then it seems like they'll drop off relatively fast. Sometimes not. Like I said, we had the King of the Glades tournament a couple weeks ago. I think there were 4 bags over 30, like a 29, a couple 28s, right? They smashed them that day, but it just seems like you could be off by this much right now and miss the whole thing. We had a tournament Thursday, this little old man shootout they have out of the north end of the lake. On Thursday, I was supposed to fish it, ended up not making it up there. It's like a little 4-hour deal, but my buddies Tanner and Finn won that with 35 and a half pounds. All right, so crazy, crazy big bag of fish. The ABA took 27 pounds to win, and then there was an event yesterday that took 25. So, I mean, there's still some really big fish to be caught. But with that being said, those bags were caught doing slightly different things each day. So the fish are definitely transitioning. They're definitely pulling out, pulling in. And back in the day, like when that first wave of fish pulled into the lake, you could follow them in, them spawning, follow them back out. Usually you were intercepted by another wave of fish coming in and things like that. But now with the lack of vegetation, these fish pull in and pull out within a day or two. We've noticed this over the last couple of years, which here's the deal. The lake's dropping. So a lot of the fish want to be a little bit further out anyway, at least right now. But with the inconsistent weather, with the wind and the little fronts coming through, mainly the wind, it's making it unfishable in a lot of these areas. Either A, the water is just mud from the day or two before of howling wind, or it's blowing that particular day and there's 2.5 foot breakers in the reed head you're trying to flip. So that's kind of what's keeping the lake fishing very tough. once we get into that early spring and our weather starts stabling out, I think it's going to be one of the best lakes in the country for a little while, for a few months. It's going to be stupid. So looking forward to that. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about right now. I'm going to kind of I'm going to run through the weather real quick, the weather prediction, like really crazy fast. And this is just kind of a rough estimate of what it's going to do. Today, my app says the world's ending and it's blowing 25, but it's definitely not doing that. It's super fishy out there, 75 degrees, 72 degrees, depending on where you're at. It's blowing just a hair, spitting rain, awesome weather. Tomorrow, low of 62, high of 75. Wind's going to be west, northwest, switching out of the north, 15 miles an hour. The way I do it, guys, I'm a full-time guide out here. What your app's going to tell you it's going to blow 4 to 6 with gusts of 15. I just look at the gust because that's what you got to account for. So that's what I did here. Wednesday, low of 60, high of 76, northeast, eastern wind, 12 mile an hour. Wednesday, first day of the event, low of 62, high of 80. Wind out of the south, southeast, southwest, west, gust of 15. But there it says it's supposed to blow 4 to 6. So especially out of the south, it's probably going to be a fairly flat, calm day. Friday, low of 58, high of 75. North wind, 10 to 18. Saturday, low of 55, 70. It's high of 77. Basically the same thing for Sunday. Northeast winds between 3 to 6, 3 to 8, and then like 15 mile an hour gusts. So again, the wind's going to do like pretty much a complete 360. But it's at the end of the day, the weather and the temperatures are going to remain relatively stable. Also, a little fun fact to throw in there is the day of the new moon is the first day of the event. So you got the new moon along with like a super hot day. It's going to be at 80 degrees with south winds. These fish know that a wind out of the south is blowing warm air. It's going to be kind of prefrontal. You could see some crazy things, I believe, happen on the first day of the event, leading in that the wind doesn't blow too hard. You guys saw in the Toyota series, we had some really good fishing, but then the wind started blowing out that southeast, that east direction blowing in. And it just blew out a lot of the areas these guys were fishing. But you're going to see a lot of, I think in this event, you're going to see it all. I think you'll see like the top 10 in the final day you could see them doing completely different things because we've had a lot of big waves of spawners come in that are going to be done spawning. So there is post-spawn fish to be caught. This lineup is going to bring in another wave of spawning fish. You might see people catching fish off the bed in this event, which we'll get into. And then there's going to be some pre-spawn. There's going to be a little bit of everything going on. What was I just going to say? You might see people legitimately sight fishing in this event off the banks, just up in super shallow water. I don't want to give too much away and throw anyone's game plan on, but a lot of these fish we've been catching that have been spawning, their backs are legitimately out of the water. Like no exaggeration. I don't know what they're doing, but you're finding them in spit deep water. Just super shallow. And I think you're going to see that again in this event. But with that being said, with the stage that the lake's going to be in, I just see, you'll see people scoping. You'll see people scoping cuts, canals, even out in the open lake. You'll see a lot of people fishing for spawners with perspective mode, with their forward facing, kind of like Scott did in the open. Because as much as we're looking at and seeing fish with the lake dropping, seeing fish pull up super shallow, and getting in this stuff, there's just as many of those fish that are out in some muddier stuff that we can't see that are also doing it. I just know that for a fact. So I think you're going to see, I really do think you're going to see people catching them all different types of ways. I think there's going to be people, if they can find some mid-range outside stuff, swim jigging, throwing in that grass, catching pre and post spawners that are on their way out or staging to come in. There has been a flipping bite. If the wind allows, you're going to see some people find some protected stuff that some fish are staging in, some big pre-spawners, flipping reeds, even just flipping Kissimmee grass. And then obviously, like I said, you're going to see people doing the whole scoping thing, whether it's in canals or boat lanes, down the rim canal, whatever. Um, Probably going to see some frogging. You might even see some, like I said, some post spawn fish that are set up more towards the main lake if the wind allows for it. People are going to find some shad eating fish. We don't really, even with the new moon, I don't think it's still too early in the year for these bluegill to really make a push and come up. In my opinion, I don't think we have any true brim eaters yet. There might be some, I don't know about them, but I don't foresee that happening. But as far as bait itself in the lake being a factor, you could definitely see someone finding some schooling fish that are feeding on shad. And they might not even find them in practice. That might be something that develops during the event. So throwing a rattle trap, a spinner bait, kind of chucking and winding something could definitely be a deal. Um, Big baits, like I said, throwing a frog. I think you'll see some really big fish caught on a frog, a speed worm, a burner worm sort of deal. It's kind of been a big player here in a lot of these events. Swimming a worm, you'll definitely see that. I really just think you're going to see a lot of everything. And one thing you are going to see, I think you're going to see some really big fish brought in. I think the amount of fish over 6.5, 7 pounds that are going to get brought in this event are going to be pretty crazy, just by the way that the lake is setting up, and with the conditions and what have you. I thought about this for a little while as far as like what I think the tournament winning weight's going to be, and I mean, I'm going to say 90 pounds for 4 days. I was almost right with the Toyota series, but this is only 100 boats, so the field's cut more just about in half, and 90 pounds I think will do it. I think you're going to see someone have that 20 a day, but somewhere in there they're going to have a 30. So whether it's the first day they have 30 pounds and then just back it up with 3 20-pound days, or it could happen randomly because you get all those 4 pounders, and the one day you mix in a couple sixes and that just magically turns into 30 real quick. It might take more. It might take way less. Like I said, it's so hard to predict things on this lake right now, but I really think you're going to see some people spread out. A lot of the areas that these guys fished last time when the elites were here, they're fishable, but they're set up totally different. That's just what it is. I think a lot of these, the lake's a lot lower than when they were here. So you're going to see a lot of guys that go to run past stuff that maybe the fish are there, but again, they're not set up the same because the areas aren't set up the same. There's 2 foot less water there. A lot of the same vegetation is gone. So I'm very interested to see, last year there was a lot of chatterbait fishing and things like that. I don't think you're going to see as much of that as you are throwing a worm, isolated cover. You will see obviously some vibrating jigs and things, but throwing a frog, fishing real skinny. A lot of the field was back in Moonshine Bay, and I'm just going to go ahead and say it. I mean, maybe it'll help someone not get hurt or ruin their week, but you ain't getting into Moonshine Bay right now. As I say that, it's 10 a.m. the first day of practice. There's probably an Elite Series member stuck in Moonshine Bay or ripped their lower unit off. And if you're that person, leave a comment. I'd like to know who you were. But some people might have tried to get back there. On top of that, everyone has the misconception that Lake Okeechobee is just muddy bottom. There's going to be a lot of boat damage this week. The service trailers are going to get a workout. I'm just going to go ahead and say that. But the one thing that I think you could see, which we don't typically see on Okeechobee, is I always, at least for me, as much as I love to run and gun, I don't win events unless I find an area that I can settle down in. Finding an area that's big enough to fish all day, kind of move around. And I don't know if you're really going to see that. I think you might see someone who finds, like Greg Hackney always says, I don't want to have too much. I think having too much will help you in this event because the wind's going to swirl. Just having options. And I think you might see people that have a big bag that bring in 5 fish, or they'll bring in 5 fish for 28 pounds. And, 3 of those fish came from completely different areas. You know what I mean? Like they'll have to run over here, get a bite or two, run over here, get a bite or two. I see that playing in this event. And I typically don't. Someone I think will find a place where you could settle down. I tell my customers it's like deer hunting. You want to wait for them to come to you. Although they are going to be doing that in the event, there's going to be fish moving. I think someone who's able to move and capitalize and get a bite here, get a bite there, and use their time wisely doing that, I think you'll see that play in this event. So I think 90 pounds will do it. I don't know what it's going to take to get a check, but it's going to be a really cool event. I'm excited to see where these guys catch them. And it's something that happens every event, whether it's a Toyota, a BFL, a Major League Fishing event, or the Elites. Someone in the top 10, maybe more, are going to show us, the locals, somewhere new. My partner Kelly says it all the time. These guys come here with just open minds. They have no idea. They don't, they have maybe little ideas, but they don't know what areas are bad or good or what makes sense to us. And they're going to shut down somewhere that us locals would never try, never do. And they're going to showcase to us some fish that we've been looking over. And, I don't want to really get into it, but the strategy and the little pattern that's been going on out here that's been winning these events, in my opinion, is something it's funny. It's something that I never would have thought would happen. And I still don't know why it's happening. But me and Kelly almost won a really big event doing the same thing in a little bit different area. He had to remind me of that. And I wasn't even aware of it, but it was kind of set up the same. They were doing the same thing that they're doing now in these other areas. But what amazed me is the amount of locals that found these fish. The gentleman that won the Toyota, he was doing it. He's not what I would consider a local, but he is a Florida guy. But then I heard about a lot of other people that were also on those fish catching them, just didn't catch them as good. And I'm like, what made you go do that? And a lot of people told me that they do that particular thing in those particular areas because it's a good place to get a limit, like a good 12 to 14 pound limit, and then go about your day. So they went and checked it, but instead of 2 and 3 pounders, they were 7 and 8 pounders in there. But apparently those fish kind of moved and did some different things and set up a little different, which the gentleman, Rob, I can't remember your last name, in the Toyota, capitalized on and was able to win. So we'll see. There's going to be some sleeper stuff unlocked, and I really think you're going to see some big fish. I think you're going to see some other people also that weigh in maybe a giant bag on day 1 or 2 or day 1, and then absolutely bomb the next day. Because that's just what's been happening. I mean, you go somewhere and you catch them, and in the back of your mind, this is non-repeatable. And I had it happen. I had a group the other day. We caught 26 pounds in a spot. Awesome. Took another group there the very next day and legitimately never had a bite nor saw a sign of a bass. So that's the way it's fishing right now. That's why I think that run and gun pattern could play. But at the same time, I could be totally wrong, and someone could just find the mother lode of spawners and catch 35 pounds a day. That wouldn't surprise me either. So we'll see. Look forward to it. It's going to be super cool. Definitely tune into Bass Live. I know my phone will be glued to it. I will be out there guiding Saturday and Sunday during the event. Thankfully, by then, the field will be cut way down. And then I'm actually off. I took off Thursday and Friday. I was going to go out and just watch, but I think Thursday I'm going to go fishing, not out there. Probably going to go fish somewhere else so I don't mess anyone up. And then Friday, I'll probably just hang out and go to the event. So if you guys go to the event, go to the weigh-in, come up, say what's up. I'll probably be there. And to all of you, if there is any of you guys that are fishing the Elites watching this, good luck. Be safe out there. Take your time running around. You don't want to damage a lower unit, especially the night before practice. You don't want to hit anything. Pull a Logan Latuso like last time. It'll mess your whole tournament up. So just be careful out there. Watch out for gators and manatees. There's a ton of them. And good luck. Be safe out there. Take it easy, guys.